Hey man, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
The record is phenomenal. I've been listening to it on repeat. I'm obsessed. I think people are.
I am too.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna ask you how you feel about it. Well, you've been super busy. How are you doing? How are you holding up?
I'm great.
Yeah.
This is a very exciting day for me. I'm very happy to be here. We just had this release party last night.
Last night, yeah.
We went very late. So I'm upright right now. I'm here. I'm awake.
Yeah, no, you're killing it, man. Looking great. That, like I said, we here at Build, we take that into consideration. We gave you the late spot.
I got the 2 p.m.
Yeah. So the party's been really well. You know, we were talking briefly back in the room, and you were saying how this came together really quick, and we're going to get into that in depth in a moment. But this moment in time, the release, this can be a really exciting time. This could be a scary time for an artist. It's when
it's terrifying,
right? Because the anticipation. What happens when you release it into the wild?
You spend a year or whatever doing this, and then all the build-up, and then it's for one day. Yeah. It's kind of, my husband is a fashion designer, and he has runway shows twice a year, and it's this runway show is 12 minutes long. Yeah. So it's kind of a similar thing. There's so much prep that goes into it, and then it's come and go. Thankfully, it's doing well right now. I'm very surprised by.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, people are really into it and really digging it. I think people were surprised too, because it's definitely a little bit different. Some people are saying it's a complete departure from what you've done in the past, which I think you can make a case for that. But I definitely hear little bits, like in the way in which you program the rhythms or the way you layer some of the textures. I can still hear Brad Walsh in there, Do you feel like it's a departure?
Yeah, but I agree with it. I think that's because, the whole album, is all the percussion is body sounds also. Yeah. But I produced it the way I produce pop music and some dance music. So like, instead of a kick drum, you have me, instead of and there's snares and claps and snaps and then lots and lots of vocals, which I always do anyway. But I think it does sound very much like me, but it's just
both.
Doing this was so weird in the first place. It's very different.
Well, let's go back a little bit. Maybe I jumped into the deep end here, but why does this album exist? Why did you make this album? Why did you make it this way? What led to the decision to create music in a way that you haven't done before?
I didn't set out to make an album like this. I set out to, the day after the Women's March in January, that next day I was just it was such an energetic day, and I was out in New York in the streets for, I think, 8 or 9 hours with a couple of my friends. And it was the energy that whole day was just so magical. Yeah. Millions and millions and millions of people all over the world came together for one purpose. And it was a very positive purpose, I feel. So the next day, I was sitting at home at my computer in my studio where I work, and it was quiet, and I was just sort of soaking that energy in still, and sort of sitting, and just, you could still feel it, especially I think in New York. Yeah. There's that feeling, that energy, and I started recording a song called March, which is the first track on the album, and it's about that energy. And so I did that one. I did another one, I think, a couple days later, and I had just released an album like 3 months before that, so I was not in the headspace of like, I'm gonna make an album right now. So I just did these 2 songs. I said, I'll put them on the internet for free. Maybe I'll do like 3 or 4, and have an EP. But then over the next month, 11 songs came out, and it was very fast. I recorded actually a lot of my demos on my iPhone, on the voice memos.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. That's crazy. So from my limited experience with crappy bands throughout the years, when we had like our ideas, we would record ideas into our notes, but then we would go and like transpose them, if you will, to an instrument or something like that. At what point did you realize that the idea was the instrument and you didn't need to transpose it to something?
I don't even know.
It just kind of happened.
I mean, yeah, oh, you know what? I'm just remembering now. In the very first, when I was recording March, I remember that's what I was doing initially. Yeah. I do that kind of a lot, like what you're talking about. You record a little.
Yeah, just so you don't forget the idea.
Like, I'm not a bass player. I'm not, so if I want to have an idea, I want to record it just audibly, vocally, and then come back to it. And I did that with the percussion at first. But it grew into, I didn't need anything else. It wasn't really like I didn't decide to do this. Also, I mean, do you know Bjork has an album called Medulla?
Yeah.
I think how many years ago? 8, 9 years ago. And that whole album, I mean, there's words, there's lyrics, and I have no lyrics in mine.
I wanted to
It's
ask
all
about that.
feeling, you know? And I was listening to that a couple months before, like a lot. I revisited it.
So that idea, that seed had kind of
I'm sure that was what it, yeah.
Was it always conceived as an instrumental piece, as something without lyrics, or
Yeah.
From the beginning?
Yeah.
That was a given. Yeah.
When I make music, lyrics are usually last for me in general. And then with this one, they just didn't come at all.
It just didn't happen.
They're very last. Maybe next year.
So it's originally conceived as an EP. All these songs kind of flow out of you, and they kind of really happen naturally. I was really curious about. There's 2 that you didn't write. 2 covers or 2 interpretations. On the album. And I'm wondering how the decision came about, how you landed on those, because I know this record is very much a response to everything that's going on around us right now. So how do you find those pieces that fit within that world?
Well. Track 4 is a cover of Bodicea by Enya, which is from 1989, I think.
Famously sampled by the Fugees. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Last night, actually, a couple of my friends who came, they heard that performed, and they're like, "You covered the Fugees." I'm like, the Fugees sampled Enya.
Yeah, exactly. You're not wrong, but
that
you're wrong.
song never had, it's a lyricless song, the original, and I've thought that song is so beautiful my whole life, and that was an inspiration for recording when I started getting really into, like, this is what I'm going to do. That song for many, many years I've always put on when I need to calm down. And I really have needed to calm down a lot this last year. There's been many occasions to calm down.
Yeah.
So it made sense to include that. And then the other cover is Cellophane by Sia.
Love Sia, yeah.
But I took out the words.
Right, of course.
But her songs, her melodies are so beautiful, and that's how she writes songs. She's told me, and my husband, she says a lot of times she gets melodies first, and imagine Sia in her apartment at her little keyboard recording all day. This is what she does. She just like, and that's what she records, and then puts words to it later, or if she's writing for somebody else, maybe they'll put the words to it. But her melodies are so beautiful and really well thought out that I didn't think that song even really needed. I think it works just as I did it.
Yeah, no, it totally does. Everything kind of flows together, and even me as a huge Sia fan, when I was listening to it, it took me a minute to realize, oh crap, this is Cellophane. It just felt like another track just kind of
I haven't told her I did this yet, by the way.
Oh, really? No. Well, she's one of our...
She knows now.
She's an adamant viewer of Build. Sia does not miss a single episode, so the secret is out. The cat is out of the bag. She seems pretty chill. I think it'll be all right.
She's the chillest.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it'd be cool. So, like I said, having my own previous experience with various crummy bands throughout the years and being in and out of studios and stuff, I'm fascinated by whatever the process might have been. Did you bank a bunch of sounds and then compose with those sounds, or were you putting out full lines and full pieces into your notes and then coming back to it and refining? What did it look like?
This album, I do a lot of that with otherwise. This album, everything on each song was purposely for that song. And even if I was gonna do another song with similar type of sounds, I redid them for that too. It's kind of part of being caught up in that moment of the inspiration of wanting to do that. For me, this time around, I was so I would have a thought for a new song for this album and just go immediately into recording every single part for it. Yeah. So I didn't reuse anything. That's dance music and pop music is all banks and libraries of sounds.
Exactly. How long? Because you said you blasted through the whole thing in about a month. You made the whole thing. That's insane. Is that the entire process, front to back, mixing,
everything,
mastering, the whole nine?
I do everything myself except mastering. I send it out for mastering, but yeah, from 0 to 100 in under a month.
And how quickly would you churn out a full song front to back if you did the whole thing in a month? No way.
Yeah.
With
every
everything.
song is one day.
That's amazing.
But that's because I got really obsessed with it. I work very quickly too. When I'm at home and
How do you know when it's done? I always found that was the
I never
hard,
know when it's
yeah,
done.
right? You can't.
Someone
as an
else
artist,
has
you
to
have no
tell
idea.
me, just stop it.
Who was telling you? Who was telling you it was done?
My husband.
Of course.
All my friends. Everyone tells me all the time, like, just let it go, move on. This one's great. Next.
Are you sure? Yeah, I was gonna say, are you interpreting that the right way? They're not going stop. Just stop.
Just shut up.
No, they always tell me when I'm done. That's how I know. I just trust my closest family and friends. That's it. I think I read somewhere you said as a joke that you make music for you and your mom.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Who's watching right now, guaranteed.
What's up, Mom? What's going on? Hey. Well, how does she feel about it?
Oh, she loves it. She told me this is her favorite of my albums, but she says that every time.
That's what moms do, right?
Oh, that's why moms are moms. That's what makes them great.
Yeah.
My biggest hype man is my mom. She's all over Twitter. I tweet, and 10 seconds later, she's retweeted and quoted. And, oh, gosh,
I love it. It's amazing. I was sharing this with you backstage that through my own reasons that are not pertinent to the story. For whatever reason, the first time I listened to the album, the first couple of times, I accidentally had it on mono. Mono, for those that don't know, it means stereo mix, left and right channels. Mono is it's all condensed into one thing.
Very different.
Very, very different, right? So I went to the album.
On headphones you were listening?
Yeah, I was on headphones and everything, too. And I was like, this is really interesting. And I discovered that I had done that. I'd gone back, and I described the experience of hearing it in headphones and stereo, like in The Wizard of Oz, when it goes from black and white to color. Just the world opens up. Yeah. What is your mixing and mastering process like? Are you putting headphones on and constructing these spaces? Do you have a room set up? How do you achieve the scale of this?
When I record, we have a loft in our New York apartment, and I record up there, and it's not soundproofed. It's just a quiet apartment. But I record everything up there, and I do a lot of stereo involvement on a lot of my songs, because the way I have it all set up, you really feel it when you're in that space, and then of course on headphones. Yeah. But oh my gosh, yeah, it's a totally different album in mono, I think. Yeah, well, especially there's one song where there's a male voice in the left and a more feminine voice on the right, and it's about the mixing and the coming together, and they harmonize. And
yeah,
so
I totally lost that on the first pass. Yeah. Totally lost. Sorry about that, but I got it the second wave around. I was like, oh, that makes so much. I was also picking out too that a lot of the sounds that you achieve, there's like I wrote down which track was it. It was almost like a didgeridoo-esque sound effect in one of the openings. And then like a lot of your vocals you layer to the point where it sounds like huge string quartets. My question is here, were you trying to not mimic but approximate instrumentation?
Totally.
Yeah, totally. You had a sound in mind. Yeah. You were trying to achieve it. Mm-hmm. What is that? How do you whittle that down and refine through that process? Oh, I need a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that. Yeah. How do you know to find
a lot of that comes in mixing later for me. Like I'll record a lot and then sometimes bury some tracks a little lower and bring up equalization and all the little technical aspects of creating music make a huge difference. So all the tracks and bringing up like this more symphonic type sounds I think was really important. People have told me for a long time that my singing voice is a little cello-like.
Yeah, I was gonna cello
so it
vibe.
Worked.
Yeah, it totally
worked on this. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Last nuts and bolts one, just because like I said, I was just fascinated by the whole project. But I think whenever you do an album, whether it's something as different as everything else you've worked on, or it's just another entry in your discography there, you learn something through the progress and through the process that you bring with you to the next one. Doing something so different from what you're used to doing, was there something you learned here that if you do your next record and it's more contemporary or more like something that we might have heard in the past, are you bringing stuff from this, and what might that be?
I think for sure. I'm sure that on my next, I feel like I'm not done. Like you were saying, how do you know when you're not? I still feel like I'm not done with this. I could do a whole other one right now.
Were there tracks that didn't make it onto the record?
A couple.
Yeah, a couple. Yeah.
And they're not finished. But more or less, most of what I recorded for this went on. But for sure, I've always done a lot with vocal layering, but I feel like I learned a little more about it. I was composing, really. And I can do a lot with my voice that...
It's an understatement. You can do a whole lot, yeah.
Without paying and worrying about it. I'm a terrible collaborator, so the more I can do just by myself, the happier I am.
This is the perfect project for you, wasn't it, then?
Yes.
It was just you making it happen.
Yeah.
We're going to throw it to the audience in just 1 second. I have one last fun question. As you mentioned, your husband is a designer, famous designer, and he had a show earlier this year.
Yeah.
And one of the headlines of that show was the great Leslie Jones.
Love her.
And her pure joy and celebration of said show.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what was it like to be that close to just absolute exuberance, just like genuine, like
I'll tell you,
support and love? Like
that is what it's like being around Leslie at all times.
that's what you
Day or night. Someone is calling me right now.
Is it Leslie? That would be amazing.
I know. She's like that 24/7. She's one of the most magical, wonderful people on the planet. She's so bright and full of love. And so at that fashion show, when what he's talking about is, my husband is Christian Siriano. He's a fashion designer. And she was front row and just losing her mind.
Oh, it was
screaming,
amazing.
hooting, like snapping. And I was sitting right next to her. And people don't do that at fashion shows.
No, it was like a historic moment.
It was so
like
wonderful.
Never happened. Yeah, it was amazing.
And luckily, all the press understood. They could have been fashion press and been like, why is she doing,
Yeah.
Luckily, all the coverage was like, this is really fun. Fashion is really fun. There's music playing, there's models and dress, like, why is it not fun? She really set a...
She set a tone,
example,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and she set an example, and I think too, it speaks to her as a person that she is the kind of person that has that character that can make that message work and have people go, oh man, that looks like a ton of fun. And she's the real deal.
That's what everyone said, and
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun.
That's very, very cool. Thank you for answering that last fun one. We're gonna throw it to the audience. We got some microphones out there. Our first one's right here.
Hi. So I really like the album art for this album, and I feel like it encompasses like a lot of what the sound is. I was wondering how you came up with it and how much like creative control you had over designing it.
It's a painting by Naya Cheyenne. She is an illustrator, and I found her, Lena Dunham's newsletter, Lenny? Yeah. Naya has done some illustrations for them, and I contacted her. I said, I love your work. What would you think about doing an album cover for me? And she did it, and I think it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's
I
amazing.
took a selfie looking up and sent it to her, and she painted it.
No way. That was the point of reference?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's so cool. Great question. Thank you. Next one is from right here.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
I was wondering what kind of influenced you initially to pursue music as a career?
Ooh. Well, I went to Oberlin College, which has a world-famous conservatory of music. And I went for creative writing, and I didn't set foot in the conservatory at the time. But as soon as I graduated, I started downloading, this is 2004. Yeah. I started downloading music programs and just tinkered with it all myself. Everything I've learned is just from screwing around. Back to my mom. My mom is like the world's biggest music fan, and so of course I am too. So I've always wanted to make music.
Very cool. That's really something that I love kind of about our generation in that time, is that a lot of people that are doing something creatively now, around 2004, 2005, there was that special internet moment where you could very easily get like the same software that anybody else was using, and you could like kind of teach it's exactly what we all did. Totally, yeah, exactly. And then you kind of figure it out, and you discover yourself through that.
Yeah.
I think only one more. We got time for one more question, and that one is over.
Hi.
Hi.
Since you don't usually lyrics isn't really that important, but if you had someone to write lyrics for your songs, who would it be and why?
Sia.
Yeah.
Just Sia?
That was immediate.
Ask any musician on the planet. Who would you like? Sia.
Sia. Sia.
Have you seen a movie in the past 5 years? You've heard a Sia song.
Yeah, exactly, right? They always.
She's in
end up there.
every movie, every TV show. Anytime there's a credit rolling on any screen, Sia's singing behind it.
It's amazing. Have you guys ever talked about maybe doing anything together or messing around?
No, I won't ask her that.
You wanna?
No.
Sia, you got his number. Hit him up. Come on. What are you doing? Well, thank you again so much for carving out some
Thank
time
you
to
very
come and
much.
hang out with us. Thank you guys for your questions. The album, Antiglot. Am I saying that right, by the way? Yeah, it's played on Polyglot. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. I figured it out.
Polyglot, multiple languages.
Multiple languages.
Antiglot, no language.
Languages, yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't cover that. I wanted to bring it up earlier. I just had to confirm for my own so I would know that I got it. But anyway, guys, you heard a little bit of it. People in the room, you got to hear it beforehand. If you haven't heard it, go get it right now. It's everywhere that music is available. Everywhere. It's on iTunes, Spotify, the whole nine. One more time, make some noise for Brad Walsh, everybody.
Thank
Please.
you very much.